morning, gals. I have a question. Do you ever go to the refrigerator and open it up and look for something to eat? Yeah? Do you do like I do? You kind of open it up, you stand there and you're looking. Do I want pudding? I like chocolate pudding. Or do I want carrots? Do I want a glass of milk? Do I want some iced tea? And you just stand there and the door's open the whole time. Ever do that? Yeah, sometimes. When I went down to Mexico right after Christmas, and I had the refrigerator door open at the house, and they have an alarm on it if you don't decide fast enough to start eating. And it's like, man, now I have to stand outside the refrigerator and go, okay, before I open this door, what do I want? I don't know what I want because I don't know what's in there. I noticed something about the refrigerator, and I don't know if you've ever been curious about this. You open the refrigerator and something automatically happens every time. The light comes on, right? Inside the refrigerator. Ice cream's in the freezer by the refrigerator. Yeah. Now, I have a question. Is that light always on? Or does it only come on when you open the door? How do you know that? You saw the switch thing? Oh, smart kids. Hey, look, I brought a refrigerator with me. Okay, this isn't really a refrigerator, but I'm not strong enough to carry a whole refrigerator up here. But watch this. Now, the light's going to come on because this is a refrigerator, right? It should really be like this. Right? So the light's going to come on. Is the light on? Is the light on? Light's on. Is the light on? Is the light on? Okay, how about this? Have you ever done this? You're pretty confident about this thing, the light being on. Have you ever tried to get in the refrigerator and close the door to see if the light's on? Have you tried that? Does Grandma know you tried that? Oh, when you tried it with your dad. Did your dad get in the refrigerator? No. Did he put you in the refrigerator? No. Okay, he was just helping you. Okay, is the light on? Is the light on? Is the light on? Is the light on? How do you know if the light's on and the door's closed? I have no idea either. The light's on. Well, yeah, the door's open. Is the light on? I don't know. It's impossible to know. Now, I should have had you sign a release form before I started this little lesson. Do not go home and try to get in the refrigerator and close the door and see the light's on. I do not do that. That would be wrong. That would be bad. You're just not, I mean, unless your dad's talking him, but don't do that. Because I'm going to tell you, you're right. There's a little switch that when you open, the light comes on. And the light goes off. The light comes on. The light goes off. Except for one thing, it has to be true. Watch your fingers. Except for one thing has to be true. Do you guys know this isn't really a refrigerator? Okay, you figured that part out? Okay. And it's just a box, just a metal box. And guess what? This isn't a refrigerator light. In fact, to be honest, it's a Coleman lantern and the light's on. The light's on all the time, even though the door's closed, the light's on. Because it's not a refrigerator light, it's just a Coleman lantern. Right? And it's always on, door open, door closed. There is a flashlight in there, yeah, and it's just always on because it's a Coleman lantern. It's not a refrigerator light. Because that's going to teach us something about God. You know what? In the book of 1 John, it's a really cool little letter that this old grandpa guy named John wrote to his people. He said, the darkness is passing and the light is already shining. So, this is darkness. Is the light on? Can you see it? But it's on. Okay, can you see it? Can you see it? Can you see it? But it's on. That's what John says in the Bible. He says, the darkness is passing, the coat is off, the light's already on. It's already on. Now, here's the cool part of what that means. Guess what? God's light is shining in each one of you. The more you get to know about God, the more you come to church, the more you learn the songs about God and the Bible about God, oh my goodness, the light just gets brighter and brighter and brighter. It's already on. It's been on the whole time. It's not like the refrigerator. So next time you go to the refrigerator and you open the door, the light's on, but it wasn't when the door was closed. God's light's always on. We've all done it. You get up to get in the car to go to someplace where you have to go, and it's a day like today. A little rainy with a little bit of snow in the forecast. When's it going to convert to rain to ice to snow? And it's like, I don't like driving in this stuff. And that's fine. We know what to do as drivers. Take the foot off the gas. Slow it down a little bit. You'll get there in time. But have you ever gone to the airport for a flight on a day like today? And you get in the airplane and you really make sure you have your seatbelt on. And you pay attention when they're saying there are exits here and here and here and here and here. And you go, I might need this information. And then they taxi out on the runway. And it is thick out there, whether it's rain or fog or whatever. It's thick out there. And takeoff can be just a little scary. And the pilot cannot do what we do when we're driving cars. He can't take the speed off. He needs to get to about 200 miles an hour before the wheels come up off the ground, or else the wheels aren't coming up off the ground. And so you just kind of hang on tight, close your eyes, and all of a sudden you're off the ground. You go, okay, we made it to takeoff. But then you look out your window for the first time, and you see these clouds going past the wing at 200 miles an hour. It's like, how can he see anything? How is he going to get us through this thing? And he's in his gentle ascent. And all of a sudden, you keep looking out the window, and all of a sudden it happens. You get above the cloud line. Anybody ever have this happen where you fly and you get above the cloud line? It is the coolest thing. Because now you look down and it's like, wow, I'm looking down on clouds instead of up at clouds. And they're everywhere. They're so fluffy. And the sky is blue and the sun is shining up here. And you're hit with this realization of something you knew theoretically was true. It's just hard to imagine when you're down on the ground. The sun was shining the whole time. It's the clouds that block the sunshine, and they're so thick, and it's been so many days because we live in Ohio. And it's just like, well, but the sun was really shining all the time. Truth has dawned on you. You knew that. And you know it from things other than weather, too. We know in time periods of our life when the sun of life can be obscured. You're going through a time of pain, a time of grief, a time of recovery. You know theoretically that sun is out there shining, and it will eventually break through the clouds of your grief and your sadness. You know this isn't your total existence from now on. It's going to be better later. You know it in relationships. Relationships where, since we have relationships with humans, we go through stressful periods in our relationship. There's a broken relationship. There's anger and bitterness and resentment. The harsh words were said and replied to, and it's bad. But theoretically, eventually those clouds of broken relationship will break, and the sun again will shine, and there will be affection restored to the relationship. We know that. Whether it's going to the doctor and getting a tough diagnosis, or going through a tight financial window, or broken relationship grief, whatever it is, we all know that the sun continues to shine. It's just obscured by clouds and darkness, but eventually those clouds are going to break. The last 2 weeks we've been looking at the book of 1 John in the New Testament, kind of close to the end of the New Testament. We're going to go back there. We're going to be there for several weeks. And I like to call the Apostle John, by the time he's writing 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, he is what I call the grandpa apostle. He is in his 70s, 80s, or 90s. He's not a young man walking around with Jesus anymore. Jesus is back up in heaven. And now, 65, 70 years later, the Apostle John is grandpa age, and he's writing this letter to the churches of the first century. And so the grandpa apostle starts dealing with us, and he makes this declaration. We talked about this 2 weeks ago. He makes this declaration. In chapter 1, verse 5, he says, God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. The sun is shining. There's no darkness in God's shining. But then he deals with, in chapter 1, what I've called the sin problem, where we who are drawn to darkness can't really see the sun. And then I don't want to review all the different responses that we learned a couple weeks ago about what do you do with your sin problem. Do you deny it or do you admit it? I just want to go for the one that I like, the one that I'm striving for, where John says, hey, here's what you need to do. verse 1, chapter 9. If you'll just confess your sins. Remember my metaphor last week? What is a metaphor? It's a reality of how bad I smell. I stink. And I can say, oh, I don't smell. But that doesn't change the fact that I do, right? I stink. I love the reaction that John deals with in 1 John 1:9 and the 4 benefits that come from just coming clean. He says, look, 1 John 1, if you'll confess your sins, God who is faithful and just will, number 1, forgive you of your sins. Oh, thank God for that. Number 2, he'll purify you from all unrighteousness. It's not just that sin you committed. He will wash you past, present, and future. But then we got into chapter 2, and there's 2 more things that Jesus will do if we'll just deal with our sin issue and say, I stink. Confession will bring about forgiveness, will bring about cleansing, but then it brings about the courtroom in heaven, where Jesus stands up and speaks on our behalf. And that to me is so exciting that God would speak. Jesus would speak to God the Father on my behalf. And then the 4th thing we looked at last week was, not only will he speak on my behalf, but he will volunteer to say, I will take Greg's punishment. Hit me with it, all of it, God. I will take it all. And he will absorb the weight of my sin. Oh, that was great. So the Apostle John is dealing with this, and he's the grandpa apostle. You get down into chapter 2, and he gets into this lightness, dark metaphor again. Let me read to you a little bit in chapter 2, beginning in verse 3, and we'll take it down through verse 11. We know that we have come to know him if we obey his commands. The man who says, I know him, but does not do what he commands is a liar, and the truth isn't in him. But if anyone obeys his word, God's love is truly made complete in him. This is how we know we are in him. Whoever claims to live in him must walk as Jesus did. Dear friends, I am not writing you a new command, but an old one, which you have had since the beginning. This old command is the message you have heard, yet I am writing a new command. Its truth is seen in him and you, because the darkness is passing and the true light is already shining. Oh my goodness, dang. I love this. The grandpa apostle is dealing with our sin issue, and he really sets up kind of a test. How do you know? Not in the Sunday part of your life, you guys are all righteous on Sunday, right? But in the Monday through Saturday part of your life, how do you know if you've really dealt with your sin problem, that you've come clean? Well, the apostle, he deals with this. He says, verse 3, we know we've come to know him if we obey his commands. Oh, cool. Can somebody please give me the total number of commands that God has that I need to obey to prove in the Monday through Saturday part of my life that I'm with God, that I've dealt with my sin problem? Okay, there's no way you can answer that question, so let's just approximate a number. Let's say that the Apostle John here is saying, there are 100 commands that God has. All right? Verse 3, we know we've come to love him if we obey his, and I'm going to insert the number, 100 commands. Total list, 100. Okay, cool. So how many of those commands do I have to obey this week to prove that I'm walking in the light and I dealt with my sin problem? I'm an American. Simple majority would rule. If I have 51 of them this week, 51 of the commands, boom. I have a second question. How much of the time? I mean, is there any wiggle room for failure? I need to know, you know? I mean, I don't have to get an A at this. I'm willing to take a B, maybe even a C on this one. If I get, a Christian rating scale is, you have to have a 60 to pass. So if I get a 60% on 51% of the commands this week, I'm good, right? It's almost as if Grandpa Apostle John knew that I was going to ask that question. Look what he says. Verse 3, we know we have come to know him if we obey his commands. The one who says, I know him, but doesn't do what he commands is a liar. Truth isn't in him. So you violate the commands of God, then, sorry to tell you this, Greg, you haven't caught it yet. You're not there yet. If you can continue to walk in darkness, you haven't caught it yet. You still haven't answered my percentage question. Oh, well then go to the next verse. If anyone, verse 5, obeys his word, God's love is truly made complete in him. Oh, cool. So it goes positive. So if I'm doing it 51% of the time, oh, the apostle knew I was going to ask that question, because look how verse 6 like nails it. Whoever claims to live in him must walk as Jesus walked. So how many of the 100 commands did Jesus obey? 51? 100. How much of the time? 100. Oh, God, why did I even come to church today? This is impossible. I'm reminded once again, it is impossible to walk with God. Because there's no way, I mean, I would be having a good week if I could get 51% of the commands of God at 60% or better. That would be a good week for me, and probably for you too. I love the fact that the Apostle John writes like a grandpa. His next verse, dear friends, don't panic, don't leave church discouraged. Don't walk out of here and say, I'll never be able to do this. Listen to what he says in verses 7 and 8. Dear friends, I'm not writing you a new command, I'm writing you an old one. You've had this since the beginning. You knew this, didn't you? You knew a long time ago, from the moment you came to Christ, you knew you couldn't do it alone. God's standard is holiness. God's standard is perfection. God cannot walk with darkness. God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. He can't deal with darkness, and you and I are dark. You knew that. But he says, but I am writing you a new command. Notice what he says in this new command in verse 7. Verse 8. Yet I am writing you a new command. Its truth is seen in him, and it's seen in you. Whoa. What do you mean it's seen in me? I'm darkness. Because the darkness, he says in verse 8, is passing, and the true light is already shining. Don't miss the power of this. Oh, I wish so much that coming to Christ and walking with God and forgiveness of sins was like a light switch, you know? You come to Christ, the light switch goes on, you are holy and perfect, and you're never tempted by sin again. Wouldn't that be nice? But that's not what it is. The darkness, he says, is passing. The darkness is going away, and what has been shining the whole time? The light of God has been shining the whole time. But it is a progression that the darkness is passing little by little by little by little. Oh my goodness, God gives us a reminder of this every 24-hour cycle. 7 o'clock in the morning in winter, it's still dark. 8:30 in winter. Oh my goodness, when did that happen? Did the sun just suddenly come up and it's bright? No, it's been a progression. Sometime in between 7 and 8:15, it went from darkness to light. That's how it is in our spiritual lives. It's not like a magic wand, turn the switch, come to Christ, and no temptation ever again. No, it's a progression. The darkness is passing. And what has been shining the whole time? God's light inside of you. Now, the Apostle John goes on in the next 2 verses, and he does something really good for us, because it's almost like he's anticipating our questions. He says, okay, so how are you going to know in your Monday through Saturday part of your life if, in fact, you have dealt with your sin issue, you have confessed your sins, and there is this progression, the light's getting brighter and brighter and brighter, not because the light gets brighter, but because the darkness is gone. How will you know? The answer is in 9 through 11. Look at this. Anyone who claims to be in the light but hates his brother is still walking in darkness. Whoever loves his brother lives in the light, and there is nothing in him to make him stumble. Whoever hates his brother is in the darkness, and he walks around in darkness. He does not know where he is going because the darkness has blinded him. Hey, if you want to know like I do, okay, how do I know in my Monday through Saturday part of my life if in fact I've come clean and I've said, God, I need your forgiveness. All these benefits come in when I ask for your forgiveness. How do I know I've dealt with it? I look at my relationships with the likes of you. If I can continue to be angry with Sally because she offended me a month ago, she said something to me and, oh man, it really made me mad. I'm not even speaking to her. I'm going to get her to, she gets looks like that. If that's my attitude, then I indicate I haven't dealt with my sin issue yet. But if I will love my brothers and sisters on the Monday through Saturday part of my life, if I can forgive people and relinquish the bitterness, the unforgiveness, the jealousy, the anger, the rage, that I will never speak to that person again after, if I can give up on that, then the light is shining and the darkness is diminishing, and I can tell because of my relationships with other people. Now, in some ways, it makes total sense. Because didn't he just say in the standard of how many of the commands do you have to keep? You got to walk as Jesus walked. Well, how did Jesus deal with problem people? Well, let's see. He really liked John. He really liked Peter, even though Peter messed up a lot. He really liked all those disciples. Really, on the night that Jesus was betrayed, when he is hours away from laying his body out for a crowning by thorn, a beating, and then crucifixion, how does Jesus deal with the biggest problem in his life personally? Judas. He treats Judas like he treats everybody else. He washes Judas's feet, act of humility for the rabbi, even though Jesus knew in a matter of a half an hour he would say, do what you do quickly. Go betray me quickly. Jesus dealt with the problem people in his life the same way he dealt with the Johns of his life, the people that he loved. He granted them forgiveness. He granted them love. He granted them humility. He granted them service. And we're told to walk as Jesus walked. And that's how we know if we've dealt with our sin issue. Now, in some ways, this is such an easy issue, and in some ways it is the most difficult issue. It's the easiest issue if you get this. Why would I be nice to Sally if Sally, no, I'm picking on you because you're not the nicest lady in this entire congregation, all right? Why would I be nice to Sally if Sally hurt my feelings and offended me? Why would I do that? She didn't even ask forgiveness. Because that is exactly what Christ did for me. And if I can catch it, if I can get it, that God gave me mercy, not giving me what I deserve, and grace, everything I did not deserve. That's what God did for me. Then how can I not do that for somebody else? It's just that easy. And it's just that hard. Because people hurt us. We are humans, and we can be really unkind to one another. And we can be unkind and then belligerent about it. Not only did I do it to you, I'd do it to you if I had a chance to do it again. We get so belligerent. Or, I can live without your forgiveness. Oh, wow. It is the easiest thing when you treat others the way God has treated you because it makes so much sense. But it is so difficult to do. And it reminds us of this. You and I cannot do it on our own. We have to say, God, I want to walk like you walked. I want to obey the commands like you obeyed the commands. I want to do it not 51% of the time, not to 51% of the commands. I want to do it all, and I am incapable of that. God, I need you to create in me a pure heart and renew a right spirit in me. You may recognize those words. Those are the words of David, King David, after he messed up with Bathsheba and they killed her husband to try to cover his mess up. David was so broken by his sin that he said, God, you have to create in me a new heart. You have to renew a right spirit in me. So this week, it's a simple challenge, and wow, this is what you should do. It's so clear and so difficult at the same time. Look at your relationships with other people. If someone has hurt you, offended you, you're jealous of them, you're angry with them, you're bitter against them, that's where you need to focus your prayer and say, God, please, I can't do it. I have no forgiveness inside of me. I have no desire to restore this relationship. Will you create in me a clean heart? Will you renew a steadfast spirit in me? Because when you do that, God says, now you're walking the way I want. You're walking in a